Hello and welcome to the BIS Talks on Food Safety Management System as provided in ISO 22000. Food is an integral part of our existence, our daily life, and needless to say, we cannot afford to be slack about maintaining food safety at every stage of the supply chain, from harvest to consumption. But exactly what is food safety, and is there a way to manage it? ISO 22000, the global standard for food safety management system, addresses these questions and provides answers that are of value to every organization that deals with food products. The BIS adopted this international standard as ISO 22000-2018 to promote the culture of food safety in food businesses in the country. I know you are now curious to know what this standard is all about. Let us first start with the definition of food safety as provided in the standard. Food safety is an assurance that food will not cause an adverse health effect for the consumer when it is prepared and/or consumed in accordance with its intended use. In other words, food safety is related to the control or prevention of foodborne hazards in food. Isn't it evident from the definition that it is also important to understand the food safety hazards before we proceed further? A food safety hazard refers to any agent which has the potential to cause adverse health consequences for consumers, and it may be biological, chemical, physical, or allergenic. Important biological hazards include bacteria, molds, viruses, and parasites. Examples of chemical hazards are mycotoxins like aflatoxins in groundnuts, pesticide residues, heavy metals like arsenic, lead, etc. Physical materials or hazards are like insects, hair, metal fragments, pieces of plastic, wood chips, and glass. The standard notes that as these hazards can occur at any stage of the food chain, from the farm to factory to fork, adequate control throughout the food chain is absolutely essential.
As is the case with most of the management system standards, ISO 22000-2018 is also based on the process approach and follows the principles of plan, do, check and act. In short, we call it PDA cycle and risk-based thinking.
Let us now go through the requirements of the standard to understand how these principles are to be implemented.
The first and foremost requirement of the standard is to determine the boundaries and applicability of the FSMS in the organization. In this regard, two critical exercises are required to be undertaken. First, identification of the needs and expectations of the stakeholders. Second, the internal and external factors that may have an impact on the food safety. In simple terms, the organization now knows the scope of the work at hand. The next obvious question is, what could be the internal and external factors which can affect the food safety management system of any organization? These factors will obviously vary from one organization to another, but for the sake of understanding, we can name a few examples. Like examples of internal factors are quality and adequacy of infrastructure, availability of professionals with the required expertise, mechanisms in place for quality control, skill upgradation systems, culture of communication, etc. Now let us look at few of the examples for external factors. These could be availability of raw materials, storage and transportation facilities, regulatory mechanisms, competition for market access, and customer behavior.
Well, I believe food hygiene is the right way by which the food is prepared, processed, packaged, delivered, and to the point that it reaches the table of the consumer. Hello friends, as a doctor, I'm here for health emergencies. But then, nevertheless, we should not create alarming conditions that may create situations for an emergency. I believe food hygiene does not mean just washing your hands before your meals, but it actually starts from the point when the food is processed, packed, distributed, and it reaches your table. Consequences of unsafe contaminated food can be very serious. Food safety is a systemic approach to food handling and accountability to food standards. Food safety begins from the point of food handling, processing, and distributing to prevent foodborne diseases. Safe food handling practices and procedures must be implemented for the safety of food in the entire food cycle. After all, safer food means satisfied customers and better business too.
ISO 22000 is an adopted international standard to ensure food safety in the food supply chain. It sets out systematic approach towards controlling food safety hazards within a food business to assure that the food is safe to eat. An organization that beholds certification for FSMS represents trust that the concerned organization has taken appropriate measures towards food safety. FSMS can be implemented by any organization in the food supply chain, regardless of its type, size, or complexity. Farmers, producers, food industry, transport providers, restaurants, retailers, equipment manufacturers, or packaging suppliers. Any other organization directly or indirectly involved in the food chain can implement food safety management system.
Let us now proceed to examine some key features of the standard. And the first most important feature is establishing the food safety policy of the organization.
The food safety policy demonstrates organizations' commitment to implement and improve food safety management in a consistent manner while adhering to all applicable statutory and regulatory obligations. It is a document shared with the interested parties, communicated within the organization, reviewed and updated periodically. I can't resist the temptation of sharing with you the policy document of an organization I found extremely impressive. Next important feature, ensuring role clarity and unambiguous articulation of the personnel and functional divisions within the organization. The top management needs to appoint a food safety team and a team leader. The food safety team shall be multidisciplinary with representation from various functional divisions within the organization. So what is this expected to do? Many things. First, select and or establish PRPs. 2. Establish, maintain and update flow diagrams for the products or product categories and the processes covered by the FSMS. 3. Confirm the accuracy of the flow diagrams, update the flow diagrams where appropriate and retain as documented information. 4. Conduct the hazard analysis. 5. Validate that the selected control measures are capable of achieving the intended control of the significant food safety hazards. 6. Maintain the validation methodology and evidence of capability of the control measures to achieve the intended control as documented information. 7. Conduct an analysis of the results of verification that shall be used as an input to the performance evaluation of the FSMS. 8. Evaluate the FSMS at planned interval. More appropriate will be to say almost everything that FSMS requires.
An important aspect of FSMS is identification of risks and opportunities. This enables the organization to visualize the preventive and mitigation measures well in advance. For example, a few common risks in food businesses are legal and regulatory compliance, achieving product quality consistently, shelf life and storage issues, etc. Opportunities are the areas of strength of an organization. They may relate to the human resources, location, diversity of operations, product variety, technology, etc. Setting out measurable objective and targets is important. It is worthwhile to have a glimpse of the objectives our most revered licensee identified for their organization. To improve the MBRT of raw milk by 5% compared to the previous year. 2. To reduce standard plate count of raw milk by 2% compared to the previous year. 3. To improve equipment capacity utilization by 3%. 4. To control reprocessing of milk to maximum limit of 10%. All the actions mentioned above so far take the shape of an action plan for the implementation of FSMS. Records of the same to be maintained. We now come to the do part, which has been defined in the Clause 7, Support, and Clause 8, Operations of the Standard.
Once the planning process is completed, the organization needs to ensure that there are the adequate resources, including people and infrastructure, to meet the set objectives. Important actions at this stage include resource mobilization, provisions of manpower, competency mapping and capacity building, establishing and activating the communication channels, defining and documenting processes, establishing the criteria for determining the impact of the processes. I consider it appropriate to introduce the feature of prerequisite programs at this stage. The organization is required to establish PRPs to facilitate prevention and or reduction of contamination in the product, processing and work environment. While selecting PRPs, the organization needs to consider at least construction, layout, air water supplies, pest control, equipment design, reception of material, storage and dispatch, and handling of products, cleaning and disinfection, personal hygiene, supplier approval program, etc. This takes us to traceability system. The organization should establish a traceability system to identify uniquely each incoming material from suppliers throughout the manufacturing process up to the end product. To put up simply, a strong traceability system allows tracing the batch of each ingredient used to manufacture a certain batch of product. This enables to avoid any inadvertent error of a wrong material being used or a wrong sequence of operation taking place. Emergency preparedness and response. The organization needs to implement a system to manage potential emergency situations and accidents that can impact food safety. Potential situations are identified and preventive and control measures are defined for each situation, such as power failure, accidents, ammonia leakage, natural calamity, fire, flooding, etc. Having a preventive corrective action in place and awareness among employees can help dampen the effect of such a situation if it takes place. Now let us discuss hazard control. The food safety team is required to carry out a hazard analysis and prepare a hazard control plan. This includes following steps. First, describes each product in detail. Second, prepares and verifies the flow charts on site. Third, conducts a hazard analysis to identify and assess hazards occurring at each process step. 4. For each significant hazard thus identified, the organization shall select appropriate control measure to reduce the hazard to acceptable limit. 5th, validate the control measures. 6th, establish a hazard control plan based on the above steps, defining the hazards to be controlled, their critical limits, monitoring procedures, corrections to be done and records to be maintained.
Now we come to evaluation as defined in the Clause 9, Performance Evaluation.
standard underlines the importance of internal audit for evaluation. Internal audits are done by the internal auditors trained by the organization for the said purpose and are done at planned intervals as defined by the organization to provide information whether the FSMS is conforming to the requirement of the standard and is meeting its objectives and targets. It is important that auditors are independent to the activity to maintain its impartiality. The findings of the internal audits are recorded and placed before the top management during the management review. Why is management review important? The systematic transformation can be sustained only if the top management of the organization owns it and applies itself to plug the loopholes, if any, in any of the processes identified for the improvement. The internal dynamism created by internal audits fructify into future course of action as a result of the management review. This brings us to the improvement clause 10 of the standard. There are two aspects in improvement clause. First is, whenever a non-conformity is identified, the organization is required to take action to control and rectify it. Also, to eliminate the cause of non-conformity. Another aspect is to continually improve the effectiveness of FSMS through the management review internal audits, analysis of result of the verification, activities, control measures, and etc.
We now come to the do part, which has been defined in the Clause 7, Support, and Clause 8, Operations of the Standard. Now we come to evaluation, as defined in the Clause 9, Performance Evaluation. Before we conclude the discussion on standard, it seems desirable to hear from one of our esteemed certificate holders how the implementation of the FSMS as per this standard helped their business.
I can say with full confidence that the overall efficiency of the plant is improved. The quantity of milk reprocessed is reduced significantly. We have achieved the minimal total solid losses, that is below 0.9%. We have also established the hygiene and sanitation of the plant, which has improved the MBRT quality of milk. Thereby, there is a huge reduction in the microbial counts. Apart from that, we are giving a regular training to our staff to update the knowledge of the process and technology. We have also established the additional infrastructure facilities to further enhance the quality of the products, that is the finished products. The customer satisfaction index has improved by over 3% after implementation of the system. Finally, by implementing FSMS, we have achieved the zero customer complaints.
So why wait for another day to kickstart the process of implementation of FSMS? That too when BIS is there to extend necessary help to you.
Organization desirous of obtaining management system certification as per Food Safety Management System standard has to do the following. First, they have to understand the requirements of the standard, then form a food safety team and appoint a food safety team leader, prepare documents as required by this standard through a process of consultation. Then they have to conduct training program for the employees to develop a shared understanding of the tasks to be performed. lay down the objectives and norms to measure progress against them, establish a food safety policy, identify risks and opportunities, and institutionalize internal audit and management review. Application can be submitted online through MSCD portal. To submit the application of any organization, they have to identify the regional office under whose jurisdiction the premises is located and contact the concerned management system coordinating officer in case it is required. Management system certification officer of the region will guide you about the process of application and extend necessary support in the certification process. Now on acceptance of application, date for stage 1 audit is communicated along with the details of auditor and the fees to be submitted. Stage 1 audit is performed to verify the authenticity and adequacy of the information shared by the organization regarding its preparedness through verification of documents, field visit and discussion with the team and top management. Instances of non-conformity are communicated for corrective action within the mutually agreed time frame. On successful completion of stage 1 audit, stage 2 audit is planned for final verification of the compliance with the requirements of the standard. In case there is some corrective action still required to be taken, 45 days time is given to the organization to do that. On successful completion of the stage 2 audit, license is granted which has the validity for 3 years. Now during this 3-year period, BIS undertakes 2 surveillance audits to ensure that the organization has stayed compliant to the requirements of the standard. I urge you to come forward and take management system from BIS. BIS with its vast experience and strong team of professionals will be by your side in this beautiful journey.